There are new numbers out on poverty in the United States, and they are staggering. The poverty level is up again for the fourth year in a row, and there are now more poor people in America than any time since census records started 52 years ago.
More than 46 million Americans were living in poverty in 2010. That's more than 15% of American households. And nearly 50 million Americans don't have health insurance, 16.3% of all households.
If you're the CEO of a major company, not a bad year. This data, all from the Wall Street Journal. It is good to be the king. The CEOs of major companies last year saw their salaries up 11% to an average of $9.3 million. Not bad if you can get it.
Anger at the U.S. financial sector boiling over on Wall Street today. Several hundred people packed into Bowling Green Park in Lower Manhattan for what they're calling an Occupy Wall Street demonstration.
Now, these protests began almost 2 weeks ago now under this name, Occupy Wall Street. And during that time, a clear goal, clear message has yet to really surface from these myriad demonstrators, leaving many to ask, what does Occupy Wall Street want?
What are they protesting? Nobody seems to know.
Some claim they're rallying against corporate greed. Others say they're fighting global warming, social inequity, gas prices.
These folks are deluded in a lot of ways and probably provide the best argument for national service for 18-year-olds that we have ever seen.
Like Woodstock meets Burning Man meets people with absolutely no purpose or focus in life. No wonder they have nothing but free time to be down there. They make up a slogan or a cause as they go along, and they're just looking to go out there and dirty the streets, and they really don't have any idea about what they're doing there.
Look how much more presentable I am after being around that filth.
All right, the Wall Street protests that are entering their third week in New York are now spreading to other cities. Large groups of protesters are turning out this weekend in Seattle, Denver, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Boston, as well as a few other cities.
They have seized upon the thing that truly unites a lot of Americans right now, in a good way, which is, the greed on Wall Street and the incompetence of politicians to rein that in, has wreaked havoc for the rest of us. And it's very clear that after people voted for change in 2008 and voted for we don't want this to happen, it's very clear that nothing is changing and nothing is getting any better. So there's an incredible anger focused at Wall Street and what it's done and what it's continuing to get away with. At some point in time, I think they will come up with demands. But the they will be, it's going to be assemblies, it's going to be democratic, it's going to be who shows up, it's going to be who's doing things. They obviously have been inviting all sorts of progressive organizations and unions and peace groups. Yes, our cause is your cause because you're the ones that are also getting stiffed by the guy that you voted for.
The media will talk about how activists have so many disparate causes that they seem to be fighting for, and that, of course, is seen as a weakness to many people in the media. It's interesting, too, because that is actually seen as a strength of a lot of movements, from a movement perspective, that have a big tent where a lot of people can feel free to tack their issues inside of it. So, those are some of the general patterns that we see. You might say patterns of deprecation, if you will. Just today in the Oregonian, there was an amazing piece that they published by Rich Lowry, an opinion piece, where he basically just called the movement a bunch of crusty, woolly-headed hippies. What you see, though, in more subtle, objective circles when it's not opinion pieces, is this the persistent question of what is your demand, Occupy Wall Street or Occupy Portland? What is your demand? The media is really used to getting press releases, shiny little press releases that tell exactly what's going to happen. So when you have a movement like this that is much harder to define, is coming from the ground up, that's emerging, and it's trying to get people to actually slow down and talk to each other, media doesn't know what to do with it. And not only that, They don't have time to slow down because they have their next deadline that they need to get. Talk about the ideas. Don't dismiss people as just ignorant. Don't dismiss them as freaky. Don't dismiss them as Lowry did, call them woolly-headed or whatever you want to do. Don't do that. That's just cheap politics. Let's talk about the actual ideas. There's a lot of interesting ideas floating around here, a lot of creative alternatives.
It's a real generational shift. And I think that they've already demonstrated, some savvy about tactics and strategy and how you reach out to the people who have, not gotten mobilized. And I think they've already demonstrated that they've got some smarts and leadership skills there that a lot of the old pros don't.
There's a tendency within media circles to always say, what's the outcome going to be? This is about process. You look around here, this is about process. This is about people organizing together. This is about people making things happen from the ground up. It's not always going to just lead to this instant linear process toward a specific goal. And if your whole mindset, and often we've been trained to have our mindset be, what's the ultimate outcome going to be? Well, then you're going to be perpetually frustrated by that. But if you can sort of settle yourself into the process, become part of the process, get yourself totally enmeshed in it, well, then you're going to have a different mindset, and who knows what's going to happen. I'm all in favor of this translating to policy someday, but I'm not saying this is the group that has to make those policies and sit around and study the city code.
We're not just angry. We want another way of deciding things, and we're going to start doing it right now. And if it looks a little sloppy, we're going to try and improve it and come along and help us. That's already sort of a more visionary thing from what supposedly are, political neophytes. Well, that's interesting. I don't know what will happen here today, but one thing I'm sure is that I know at the end of this, not everybody's going to go home. And that's another part of their message, which is we've reached the end, and so we're in it. We're in it for the duration. There's that flavor to this, and that flavor has been sorely missing, from a lot of progressive campaigns and organizations in America for a long time.